Hello, my name's David. I'm an environment artist, and today we're going to be looking at two games, two Star Wars games. And the first one is going to be Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws using the Snowdrop Engine. And the second one is a game I've been replaying lately, and that's DICE's Star Wars Battlefront II using Frostbite Engine. And I've been reminded anew how good Battlefront 2 is. It's just so great. I mean, only the single player. I'm not really into multiplayer PvP, but I was playing through the single player campaign and I've just been freshly blown away by it. And so I wanted to kind of compare the two. The only common ground between them is Tatooine. So we're going to have a moocher and Mos Eisley, and we'll have a look at the assets, the general environment, the lighting, and just the ambience of it, and a slight comparison between the two. Firstly, I should say it's not fair to compare an open world game like Outlaws with a strictly contained level-based game like Battlefront 2. They're different beasts entirely. They need different development approaches, and they have very different constraints on them. And there's different advantages and disadvantages with both games. But before we hop on over to Mos Eisley for a little mooch around and look, I want to say thanks to channel members. Continually super grateful to you all. And we've got a few more of you very kind people have joined as well. So yeah, I'm really grateful, and it's exciting, isn't it? It's great having you along. So thank you. So to Mos Eisley we shall go. You there? So here we are in Mos Eisley Spaceport in Star Wars Outlaws. Let's have a look at it, eh? Have you noticed straight away, actually, Nix's footprints there? You see, they're just disappearing on this end here, there. You can see them disappearing as he makes more. But, what a great little touch. Our little buddy here, making his own little footprints. Yeah, there's some really nice surface work going on. We've... well, straight away, let's pop on the old ReShade there. You'll notice a hit to performance because, ReShade is, after all, injecting more post-process stuff on top of the game. So, but, we're not playing ReShade for ultra frame rates, are we? But, we could see there's nary a straight line in sight on the terrain. Lots of undulation, nice shape to it. Yeah, and actually... you might notice a number of spots here. Look at this kind of interesting surface there, and in various spots dotted around here. So you'll notice if we just get the old camera, and we'll just lower down here, and you can actually see the polygons here, can't you? Really, they're having a little jiggle, aren't they? Because they're alive, they're actually deforming as Kay Bess is moving her feet around. You can see it as she's shifting. It's continually deforming, and you got stuff like that, but you don't notice it when you're playing it. When you're up at player level, way up there, you don't notice stuff like that. So that's of no consequence. What matters is that you're getting nice deformable terrain. And it even happens when banthas and stuff walk through it as well. Oh, there he is. There's a little bantha there. So you can see how he's kicked up this little ridge around where he's walking. Yeah, cool. And so you can see the edges of them. They're just zones that have been placed in the world. You can actually see the edge of it there to give it a little bit more interactivity and a bit more life, And some areas have more or less than that, depending on where you are. But, it doesn't really make sense to need that everywhere in a place like Mos Eisley, because this is hard-packed earth, well-travelled, and then you get the occasional bits of, dynamic surface stuff going on. The creatures are great, aren't they? I mustn't get distracted, though. Let's keep focused. Because I want to compare, similar things from this and Battlefront 2. So I'll have a look at the walls here. Got here And as far as I could tell, there's no parallax mapping or anything on these walls. These are really relying on the normal map combined with surface modeling as well. So you can see the ins and outs there and the shape that we've got all through here. And that does the job, doesn't it, really? Yeah. And just the required amount of topology to support the shapes you're trying to get. And of course, there will be further subdivisions for the painting of the materials on there as well. So, I mean, all in all, it's I think it looks really good. Considering this is an open world game, it's not a tightly constrained level-based affair like Star Wars Battlefront II. You know, this is an open world. You can go pretty much anywhere with a day-night cycle, which is all important here. You know, and you know, we got the ray tracing as well. And as we'll see when we jump over to Battlefront 2, you know, in some ways, it actually doesn't look quite as good as Battlefront 2. And we'll go into those reasons, you know, when we jump over there. But, you know, I think that this is doing a lot. And it's kind of unfair to compare, you know, open world versus level-based game, isn't it? Of course it is. Different beasts entirely, different constraints. So, you know, but I'm more interested in, just out of curiosity, really. I think it's interesting to compare two Star Wars games in a similar environment. And these things don't come across very often, do we? I mean, 9 years between these two games, or maybe 8. So I think, having had a little quick dip in here, let's jump over to Battlefront 2 and compare some similar things and, you know, have a look what's different and what's similar. Okay. Okay, so here we are in Star Wars Battlefront 2. More or less the same place in Mos Eisley. And, I mean, you can see straight away that, you know, there's a lot less life. Of course, because it's a multiplayer focused game, isn't it? You know, these are concessions to the type of game that we're on. So, you know, we have to look past that. I mean, you've got a bit of life going over there, which is a nice touch, isn't it? But, you know, you're running around here shooting other people and stuff. So, got to bear that in mind. But let's check out. I mean, they're very similar and yet very different, aren't they? Like, you know, looking at the ground here. Let's pop on the old ReShade there so we can see the topology here. And really nice. I mean, the Frostbite Engine is brilliant. I think it's awesome. I mean, from an 8-year-old game, getting this level of detail on your terrain is really amazing. It's really good. And of course, back then, the only way you'd do that is within a strictly contained level-based game like this. So, you know, let's just always keep that in mind. If I switch that off, you could be forgiven for thinking this is a parallax material. And I mean, to be honest, a parallax material would have done really well here as well. It would have fit right in. It even has that sort of telltale look. If you just very carefully look at the edges of some of these rocks here, maybe this one near the end of the gun here, there's a slight stretching as you get near vertical, and there as well. And you get that slight stretching of the texture, and that's kind of quite characteristic of a lot of palm shaders as well, I think. But here, you know, as you get near vertical, the UVs, there'll be a top-down projection, and so those UVs are being stretched across a longer area because they're nearly vertical, so you get that slight stretching. But, you know, I mean, that's only if you look really closely. And brilliantly, these are all geometry. It's awesome. All of those ups and downs. I mean, yeah, that is really cool. Yeah. But, so let's zoom in. If we move forward, you can see around the player as it pops in that dynamic tessellation there. So it's quite close in. I mean, I'm zoomed in, of course, so that makes it look closer. But, you know, we can see as we move along, the different bands of detail getting drawn in. You know, I mean, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 bands, at least 4 bands of detail there. And when you kind of go to the sort of middle and far distance, there's actually nothing. There's no tessellation there. And it only draws in quite close, which is the only reason to get away with it. But, you know, lovely modelled in pathways here. Really cool stuff. and it just looks all around great, doesn't it? You know, I mean, let's compare a wall. Let's compare like for like, as it were. And yeah, I mean, it looks like they're using projected decals. You can see the sort of alpha edge there. It's quite a hard edge, but yeah, I mean, it works fine, doesn't it? They've not been too fastidious with these edge lines here. We see that edge line going all the way down there. And I mean, it's not even... Is it blending? I think it actually might... no, it's not. It's kind of in and out almost, isn't it? I mean, that could be as much lighting as anything, but it doesn't seem to blend very well in any case, does it really? Oh, there's only people like me that are stopping in these multiplayer games and going, oh, look at that. Which is one of the frustrations I found with this game, is that I always just wanted to look around and people kept shooting me. But for this, I've set the number of players to 0, so I've got it to myself. But yeah, a lot of nice detail on the walls. Looks great. The geometry, you know, really quite simple. Following much the same philosophy as Star Wars Outlaws here. You know, it's pretty much flat planes unless you need a bit more detail to support what you're trying to do. Like, that's a good example there, isn't it? You know, it's just a bit of undulation, a bit of unique sort of shape to it, so it's not too pristine. Pretty cool. And there's some nice sort of detail work on the edges, isn't it? You know, the edges where your eye gets drawn to. You know, the human eye is great at edge detection. Awesome at edge detection. And game design takes full advantage of that. You know, you'll notice lots of details get pushed to the edges or the silhouettes of stuff, corners, things like that. So that's a nice, good old bit there, isn't it, as well? That's a really cool bit. Yeah, cool. And yeah, all this nice geometry on the ground. It's really cool, isn't it? And it's really dense as well. I mean, this is much more dense than Star Wars Outlaws. At least the non-tessellated bits. And looking really nice, isn't it? So, one thing that... It's a curious mix, isn't it? It's a lot emptier, the levels, obviously. You know, there's no creatures, a lot less people... and they've chosen like to go a slightly different route with assets and stuff, you know. In this we get a lot more like market stall type stuff with all these interesting details, like all these creatures and stuff. And Star Wars Outlaws has it, but in its own way. So let's pop over back to Star Wars Outlaws and we'll check out like assets and street furniture and stuff like that. So here we are back to Star Wars Outlaws, and you know the contrast is quite stark, isn't it, in the amount of furniture filling up the streets. The amount of stuff that is around here. And if we kind of go over here, of course, we've got sort of more interior spaces as well. I mean, it's all round a more open game, isn't it? Of course, because it's an open world game. So what we'll do, we'll have a run around to Scrapyard. Here we go. And I really like this area. I think it really shines here. You know, there's just so much stuff around, isn't it? And it's, you know, it's giving life to the city. It's telling the story of what's going on and, you know, the lives of the people and how this kind of wretched hive of scum and villainy functions, doesn't it? Yeah, there's so much stuff around here. So, yeah, oh, lots of stuff. Let's get a good look at some stuff in here. Let's pop out the camera. Have a look here. There we go. Excellent. This is really useful for asset viewing, isn't it? I mean, if you want to make assets for games, this is your tool, isn't it? You know, you can just pop in and see exactly what level you want to be making your assets to. So, you know, I couldn't ask for a better tool. I wish I'd have had this when I was learning game development. You know, this would have been such a gift because, you know, back in the day, you know, you didn't really have any access to what game developers were doing. You didn't have so much access to, you know, viewing tools like this. So, you know, these things are, yeah, I mean, I would grab this by the horns and really run with this sort of stuff if you're interested in making things. But, you know, all relatively, you know, low poly. But once you got the materials on, it all shines, doesn't it? It all looks great. Whoa, let's have a look at this one up here. All these cool motors and stuff. I mean, all of this is the stuff that tends to be missing a lot from Battlefront. And, you know, I keep coming back to this, don't I? It's the nature of the game. The nature of the game dictates that there's no need for excessive furniture and clutter like we have here, because this is an open world and it wants to draw you in and make you explore. Whereas Battlefront 2, you know, it wants a cool environment for you to run around and shoot things. So, you know, I would have loved to have had this sort of game in the Frostbite engine. That would have been a really exciting prospect. But yeah, so, you know, lots of repeated props and stuff, of course. But, you know, check these out here. This is an interesting choice here, because details like that could quite easily have been done in material, where they've chosen to actually model them in. And of course, you know, that's going to help the silhouettes. I mean, it's a bit dark in here for silhouette stuff like that. So, you know, let's take K outside. Get a bit of lighting going on. This is an interesting little bit, isn't it, here? Yeah, cool. I mean, these sort of crate things here. I mean, the classic Star Wars crates. And actually, now I'm looking at the classic Star Wars crate here, I'm thinking, Portal. That's a Portal comfort cube if ever I saw one, wasn't there? Yeah. Cool. Right. So, let's get our camera going on. So, yeah, we're looking at all this sort of detailing and stuff here. Really cool, isn't it? Yeah. And, you know, once you're at player level, all those details are really singing with the material. All this stuff. Cool. Whoa. Interesting sort of nail hammer going on there. Don't know what that is.
It's
Oh,
hot
another
out
one
here,
there.
Onyx.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So yeah, just general, lots of stuff. Lots of furniture to fill out the world. Yeah, cool. And, you know, we've seen the level of detail that it's got. Doesn't really need that much once you've got these nice materials on them. And here we are, coming back to the Obrikian Trade Tower. Very iconic building, isn't it? And all this stuff as well. These are like pod racer engines, don't they? Yeah, nice. Well, let's just check these out as well. Yeah, really clean, aren't they? Really nice topology. Just cylinders, really. I mean, you know, it doesn't take you long to knock up stuff like this. You know, cylinder, just copy it across, rotate the angle, just do a kind of array of them all around. Done. A few extra details. Yeah, really nice. Just a lot of it is just repetitive detail, isn't it? You know, and that fills out all its surface characteristics. Yeah, you can go a long way on not that many assets, really. Yeah, cool. Right, that is a good look at all that sort of stuff. So, you know, let's look at similar stuff in Battlefront 2. Okay, here we are back in Star Wars Battlefront 2. So, yeah, we've kind of got a different flavour of stuff here, haven't we? And we've got all these, I mean, they're really cool in their own right. And I would have liked to have seen a few more things like this in Outlaws, I guess. But, you know, it's really nice. And I would sort of venture to say that some of these surface materials are better than Outlaws. You know, there's Star Wars Outlaws just feels a little bit mushy compared to Battlefront 2 here. There's a clarity here that, yeah, I mean, it really shines, literally, doesn't it? Look at that. What a really great surface that is. It's really nice, isn't it? But, you know, they're modelling much the same things from the same universe, of course, aren't they? You know, and this will be just an asset that's sort of repeated around. But all sorts of interesting, cool shapes, aren't there? Let's have a look at them. And again, you know, I mean, these could be, they could be assets from the same game, couldn't they? Comparing them, you know, it's all the same because it's all the same principles of modelling, isn't it? You know, they know what they're doing, the artists on both of these games, and you know, there's not that many ways to make good props. You know, there's a right way and a wrong way generally, and you know, they know what they're doing. So that's a cool pipe thingy, isn't it? That's really good and pretty low poly, but you just don't really see the facets. But this looks quite cool. The canopy. Let's check out the food items on display. There's like sort of rat type things, aren't there? Are these? No, they're not womp rats, aren't they? Womp rats are like really big. Not much smaller than 2 meters, aren't they? Something like that. Or an Death Star exhaust port. Why Luke is going around bullseyeing big creatures like that, I don't know. Has he not got anything better to do? Shoot blooming missiles at the wildlife on Tatooine. Mind you, there's probably not that much to do, is there? Probably get a bit bored. But, oh, there's one lying around on there. Cool. And of course, there's a bit of life to them. They're swinging around. There's no interactivity with the player. But doesn't need to be. Doesn't need to be. Nice bit of barbecuing going on. But yeah, I think it does feel a bit sparse compared to Outlaws. But it seems like the materials are better, doesn't it? Yeah, it really, really fascinating differences between the two. And, you know, of course, 8 years between them. Well, so, you know, two very different games just set in the same universe. There's a cool speeder, isn't it? Look at that. Wow. That's great. Right. So, having had a good look at those, I mean, maybe we'll just have a last look at these. I think these are moisture evaporators. I think so. Yeah, cool. And yeah, in a similar way to Outlaws, you know, they've chosen to go and model some of the finer details in there rather than just relying on materials. You know, because they're relatively simple shapes, and you know, I think they can afford a few, you know, extrusions and what have you here and there. Give it a bit of interest, and it all registers on the eye. You know, especially when you're looking past them at the sand beyond. You know, your eye registers those extrusions, doesn't it? You know, you totally see it rather than just a straight line cylinder that it might have been. You know, it all adds up to make these spaces full of interesting things. So, back in Star Wars Outlaws, check out the lighting here. Overall, the palette is more subdued, isn't it? I think it's a bit more generally grayer than Battlefront 2, but you know, it's nice to have all that stuff going on, though, isn't it? You know, it feels a much more lived-in and populated space. Again, you know, because it's an open world game, it wants to sell you on the sense of place, the sense of an open world for you to explore. And its focus is far broader than just online multiplayer shooter. So, you know, there's gameplay elements and world building that has had to have a lot of thought in this game, which Battlefront 2 just didn't have to deal with. So, you know, there's so much more to this game, even though in some ways Battlefront 2 does look a bit nicer, doesn't it, really? Certainly in terms of some of the surfaces and the metals as well. And I think, you know, I mean, they look good, whereas Battlefronts look really good. Yeah, they look really, really good. So let's tinker with the time of day, shall we? You know, because you can't do that in Battlefront. Whereas here we've got our camera tools, and I have the luxury of playing around with the day-night cycle. So, you know, whereas the art director on Battlefront 2 would have been like, you know, what's the best time of day and what's the best angles to get the sun out and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, whereas this is, it's got to work at all times of day, isn't it? You know, so yeah, oh cool. So here we are back in Star Wars Battlefront 2, checking out the general ambience and the lighting, I suppose. And you know, coming from Star Wars Outlaws, yeah, there's a clarity to it, isn't it? There's yeah, Outlaws just keeps making me think of the word mushy. Now, and of course, as I've said before, it's entirely unfair to compare these two games really, because one's an open world and one's a constrained level based game. This doesn't have any ray tracing, it doesn't have any day night cycle. So, you know, straight away, that's a massive difference. Star Wars Outlaws has got to work at all times of the day with different shadow directions and everything. So you can't pre-bake your lighting in Star Wars Outlaws. You know, you can't do that in a dynamic day-night cycle. Whereas this, the art director knows that the lighting is fixed. It's pre-baked GI. And so, you know, you can make that work to your advantage and curate it precisely. And, you know, make it look really nice. And they've done that here. You know, it just looks really good, doesn't it? So, you know what you're getting in terms of the lighting. It's going to be, you know, something that is a very known quantity when it's pre-baked. And it's, you know, you can get all this lovely stuff going on. The shadows look really good, don't they? And, you know, just look at the, I don't know whether this is a conscious choice maybe or not, but, you know, arches like this, and then you got the shadow on the ground in front of them. A real contrast, isn't it? And it's making windows through. You know, you could have chosen a different time of day. These sort of shadows might not have been quite so effective, and yeah, maybe that's coincidence. I don't know, but this is the sort of thing that I would be looking at in terms of art direction. You know, you put a lot of thought into your light direction when it's pre-baked, and you know the layout of the level, everything's going to be thought of in terms of, you know, the lighting, the make of the level. You know, again, same thing there, isn't it? And there's no areas that are just drowned in shadow, if you notice. You know? Oh, what's around here? Docking bay. Cool. You know, you've always got, it's edge of the area. The curse of Star Wars Battlefront 2, if I may say so. But, yeah. You've always got this interplay between light and shadow. And it really kind of helps define the whole world here. And yeah, it's so lovely and clean, isn't it? And crisp. Works really well. And I particularly love these areas under awnings in this game. You know, it's shining through all those little holes. You know, it's really, you know, it's accurately computed. The sun is coming through those and it's shining through all that. And it, you know, it just looks really good. And of course, we're getting some coloration in the lighting. We're getting light spill, and it's taking some color surrounding objects as well. Nice job there. And there's a number of those awnings, and it just works really well. So yeah, no accident that the light is up there. I think, you know, considering the orientation of these streets, so you get, you know, generally one side's got some shadow, the other's in full light. Lots of shadow spilling across the play area. Right, so we'll pop back into Outlaws and wrap up there, I think. So I think that concludes what I wanted to look at with these two games. Just not really a comparison, certainly not head to head. As I've been at pains to point out, haven't I, that, you know, the huge difference in these two games, and they're just portraying the same subject and area. And I thought, yeah, it's kind of nice, isn't it, to sort of look between the two, and always bear in mind that they're two very different games with different purposes, different focuses, different constraints, and different design philosophies, different tech. But both, you know, great games in their own right, aren't they? But yeah, so I think we'll leave KVS on the outskirts of Mos Eisley, and I shall bid you farewell. I hope that was interesting, and I'll see you again in another video. Take it easy. Bye.